Welcome to the Brilliant Fertility Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Rose, and this podcast exists to help illuminate the path ahead of you. With expert interviews, clinical pearls, and real client success stories, my intention is to bring you hope for what's possible on this journey and to give you tools and resources to navigate the ups and downs on the road before you. If you find this podcast helpful, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite listening platform. And I have a big request. If you have a minute, can you leave us a 5-star review? And let us know, what did you learn? What did you come away with? Did you leave with that spark of hope? This helps more people like you find the podcast. My mission is to support as many humans as possible on their path to become parent. And by you sharing and subscribing, you're part of that mission too. And I'm so grateful for you for being here. All right, welcome back to the podcast. I have one of my favorite people here with me today, one of my patients, Adriana, and this might feel like not the typical success story in so many ways, right? And yet, I feel that your story is one of the most beautiful that I have witnessed in the last 11 years of working with fertility patients and people who are on the path to parenthood and loving themselves and learning to trust their body and the universe. So thank you so much for being here with me today. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is the first time sharing my stories, so I'm excited just to do this and hope it just gives people open mind and open heart and just trusting the whole process to becoming a parent. Yeah.
So when you had first reached out to me a few years ago, where were you at that point in your journey, and like what prompted you to reach out?
I had worked with a fertility doctor here for a couple of years, and then I really felt like I needed to take a break. There was a lot going on just with me emotionally, physically, but I did ask the doctor, like, is there any naturopath doctors in town that you would recommend? And they mentioned you, Dr. Rose. So I still needed to take a break. So I think it was about, 2 years of really trying, doing IUI. I just didn't feel comfortable with IVF for myself at that time, and took a break and was like, you know what, I think it was about 2 or 3 years, and then reached out to you and was like, okay, let's try this again, give it one last shot to see what's going on, diving down to see if there's anything more I could do, and kind of get into the root of what's going on with my body. Little did I know there was a lot of emotional stuff to deal with too that I had never really focused on, but it was working with you was fantastic. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the emotional part of that? I don't know that it's talked about enough from the Western standpoint. When you're in the IVF office, they might notice if someone is visibly upset in that moment, but can you tell more about what that experience was like emotionally?
Yeah, it's a huge roller coaster. I mean, me and my husband, I am thankful that he is more in touch with his emotions than I am. And through this process, it's really made me more in touch with my emotions. You just question a lot. You sit in the clinic, and at first let me back up a little bit. At first feels like you're in a boat with some friends. You're all trying to get pregnant, trying to have kids, and other people start getting pregnant and they're kind of jumping out of the boat. And so I feel like, even especially as a woman, you're in this boat, and then your friends are jumping off because, oh, they are pregnant, they have kids. Then you start looking around, and pretty soon you feel like you're the only one on the boat. And you're like, what's going on? Like, you're going to these clinics, there was only a few friends that really knew our journey, just because part of me was more private, but then I also was just going through so much anger, bitterness, resentment. I didn't handle it healthy and knew like this isn't me, but this is kind of hard to not feel these emotions. And is this okay? Because I feel like I'm a nice person. I feel like I've done things right. Like, what's going on, And I would kind of cut off, to be honest, I was starting to cut off friendships and not knowing how to tell them, like, this is hurtful for me. Like, I'm happy for you, but this is really hard for me, So at that point, I really felt like, okay, I need to go see a counselor. My husband didn't push it, but I told him, I think I need to go get some counseling because and I even think in that too, people just don't really see like, oh, you're going to counseling, like, oh, but it's a beautiful thing to go to counseling, to have someone from that outside perspective that doesn't know you looking in, just is this okay to feel this way? Is this, you're kind of questioning those with them. And yes, it's okay. This is normal. It is okay to have this bitterness, to have this anger, to have this questioning. I for me, I had my faith and it really rocked it to be like, why am I going through this? Sitting in the clinics, you're just, there's times you just had tears because you're like, why? Why me? But as we go on with my story, you'll see just this beautiful picture of why this was meant to be for me, and my journey. But yeah, it's rough because you sit there and you don't even talk to the other people in the clinic either, the other patients, you just feel like, so you feel even more alone. So you're in this boat, you feel like you're alone because all your other friends, coworkers, whoever else are getting pregnant, but then you're also like, oh, in the clinic, you just feel alone because it's not like you're sitting there talking to people really wanting to share each other's story when you're kind of trying to focus on your own journey.
Yes, I think you fleshed that out really well. And I know that there are going to be so many people who are like, yes, every bit of it is so relatable, from, the feeling like you're just being left behind to going to the clinic. And it's like everyone has these awkward blinders on because
Mm-hmm.
there's like this odd stigma still around this, and you don't know what's going on with someone else. And you're like, I almost don't want to open the floodgates. And it, we're not born with a manual for dealing with this. So when those emotions start to creep in that don't feel like you, the bitterness and the resentment, having some outside support is almost mandatory. And
Mm-hmm.
I wish that it was part of the conversation. Like the minute someone steps in the IVF clinic, when they start talking about, like, here's what we see physically, here are your options. And this is probably not what you expected in life. Here's some referrals to some other people who can support you while you're going through this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wish that was just part of a first conversation.
Yeah.
But once we started working together, what did you notice start shifting? I mean, physically, I think initially we had some really good momentum, but emotionally, more than anything, what did you notice?
Well, I just want to like reiterate, it's okay to take breaks. I feel like there's so much of this pressure to be like, oh, hurry, hurry, you're 35. Oh, hurry, you're 40, but I think just working with you. So I took a break, came into you, was like, all right, let's try this. I felt like we could give it another shot, but really tuning into my body, which that you helped me with, that I didn't really realize was a huge part of it. You kind of think, oh, okay, we'll try some things, we'll do some acupuncture, but reflecting on how I'm feeling, my intuition, my trust, my working through that emotional part of just crying, and it's okay to cry. It's thanking my body. There's times where I just was like, well, come on, body, like, well, you're not working, you kind of thought was a big, but I'm like, no, it is working. Like, I am thankful I'm waking up. I'm thankful I can move. So even those times I didn't want to be thankful, but talking to myself was a big thing that I learned with you, and thinking, hey, thank you, body, for going to the bathroom. Thank you. I mean, every little thing too, of like, hey, some days I had to pull out some stuff, like, and not beat myself up, because it's hard to be like, oh, you're not pregnant this month. Like, darn, like, you're not, to be like, ovaries, I hate you. Like, so changing that mind shift of like, thank you, ovaries, for working for me. Thank you for you're doing a good job. You're trying. You're doing a good job. A lot of those self pep talks, and a lot of the talks of thanking your body, because there are those times you just get so resentful of your body, and the body is a beautiful thing. And even though it's not working to the way I want it to work for me, it's it's doing its job, and it's doing its best it can, and just honoring that and loving that and appreciating that is um a big step. I mean, I work in a hospital, so I see pain and suffering every day. I see
Yeah.
physical and emotional, and I think that's just a big thing of realizing too, more and more, like, oh, we all have our struggles. We all have different pain and suffering, and physically, emotionally. But it was interesting because I still have to kind of encourage my patients in the hospital, but I wasn't encouraging myself. Um, so I think that's big, where I had to step back and be like, oh, I need to encourage myself too. Like, I can't just be encouraging these patients. I need to do it to myself.
Yeah. It's also a really normal part of that journey when our bodies are not doing what we expected them to, and what we're seeing everyone else's bodies seemingly doing so easily, to be like, what the heck's going on here? And to
Right.
have that initial judgment. Um, the
Mm-hmm.
episode that I recorded with Dr. Julie Vaughn, I think she said something that uh, I also very much believe, is that going through this journey of things not going the way we expected with fertility is this huge opportunity for healing in other ways that we didn't even know we needed. And it
Mm-hmm.
sucks initially to have that highlighted. But if you are able to gather the team, the tools, the resources to do the healing, it creates this pathway for trust and unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be really beautiful.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, the few friends that we knew our journey, they were our people. They would check in with us, encourage us. Yeah, I mean, it made a difference, on top of counseling and working through what I needed to work through. Having those people there was was a blessing, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. Were
Mhm.
there any particular tools or resources that we were using that you found that were really helpful for you as you were finding the ways to thank your body and be in more communication with your body?
The tapping was huge. That with what's the name,
We
the
did the EFT
yes,
quite a bit. Yeah.
yes, EFT tapping was great, because that just really, um yeah, just really tuned in with what I was feeling, but then also just letting it go. Those times where I was anxious or angry, or and you're talking out loud and verbalizing it too, right? So that's also, yeah, it just helped release those um, negative emotions that weren't serving me. Also, just even the acupuncture was great, just to go in and kind of take that big breath and let go and relax. that was also huge and beneficial for sure. For sure.
Yeah. For those of you who might be listening who aren't familiar with EFT or tapping, it's a tool that we can use to move energy. And it has a lot of uses both with physical and emotional concerns, but it essentially uses talking through what the issue is while you're tapping on acupressure points. And the studies that they've shown on EFT have been really incredible. Like it changes how the brain works. So it's helping to regulate the nervous system. And, more from the energetic standpoint, when we can identify what emotion it is we are feeling, if we can give it a name, if we can locate where we're feeling it in the body and how we're feeling it, we can then let go of it so much more easily and decide, what do I want instead? And not from a gas lady standpoint of like, okay, I guess I'm thankful I'm breathing today, but actually being able to genuinely feel that is really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I will say that you were committed to it too. Like you showed up and you tapped every week, and that can be uncomfortable, right? When we're working through our own shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it that really allowed you to stay so committed to this path for yourself?
Um, I knew it was helping me just to let go of those emotions that weren't serving me. So, and we did it at that first, it was like a little trial thing you were doing. So there was like a group of women too. So it was also good to kind of see where they were coming from as well. And, oh, I feel that way as well. Or I needed to let go of that as well, so it was kind of a little group that was great to just, you also felt, oh, I'm not the only one that felt that way or feels that way, or I need to release that. So I just really feel it helped keep me grounded and recognizing that this was normal to feel, but then also, okay, this isn't serving me right now. So how can I, in a healthy way, let this go? Rather than chewing on it or going down that rabbit hole or, feeling alone or, it just really helped let go what wasn't serving me.
Yeah.
So that's why I kept going. And you were great.
For anyone who's interested in learning more about tapping, like feel free to shoot me a DM and I can share more resources, and I'll put some resources in the show notes as well. We ended up having this full year of meeting weekly for tapping, and it was so incredible to witness those of you who were committed to this process and showing up and just letting go of all of this and seeing the growth in all of you. And I also know that, with all of those recordings, like sometimes it's like, oh gosh, how did you make the time to commit to that? Like, was that an issue for you at all? Or was it just part of that commitment?
It was part of that commitment, but then I was scheduled on a day off. So I mean, that also helped for me, to set aside that time and to know, and it was, yeah, I mean, and it was interesting too, because we were all in different stages of our fertility gain, right? Like some were in IVF, somewhere I was just like, I I didn't choose IVF for myself, but I still was just trying to trust my body and be in that process. So some were looking at, an out of state. I think you even had some ladies from out of state that, just our journeys were so different of where we were, what we were trying. But I always found it interesting too. Yeah, I wanted to keep going. I knew it was serving me. It was easy because it was something that was helping me and my body and where I was at, in my process. So, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. We still have all of those recordings in our tapping vault, because there are so many commonalities depending on where someone is on their journey, but trust
Mm.
is almost always a factor. Trusting your body, being able to trust like this path leading you towards something, even when you're in what feels like the dark and you're like, why would this make any sense? Like, this
Mm.
sucks. I didn't ask to be here,
Mhm.
and yet we're here. So, how are we going to play these cards that we've been dealt? And so I'm so proud of all of those of you who showed up for that, continue to show up, all of the people who, have continued in the Brilliant Fertility Program where we're doing this work on a weekly basis too. I'm
Mhm.
also curious to know, before we actually dive into the story of how your son came to be, um,
Mhm.
like, was there anything that you noticed physically in using naturopathic medicine to support yourself during this process too?
Physically, you're saying? Um, yeah, I mean, I just really felt like more energy. I felt uh, relaxed. I definitely, even in the times where I felt myself getting more tense, I had my tapping to help to just release and relax. I really felt I'm a both believer of both, like, which I love about you. It was like, okay, yeah, there's Western medicine that helps, but then there's also naturopathic medicine that has a huge role as well. So for my journey, my husband was great and was like, if you want to try IVF, I'm with you, but it's your body. I'm not gonna make you do IVF. Like, if it we had a lot of discussions going back and forth. Like, is this for me? Is this not for me? Am I going to regret it? Am I not going to regret it? But diving in, I felt like this was not the last straw, but that naturopathic side was like, I want to dive down to at least see if I can get answers of why I'm not able to conceive. But also just prepare me. I knew deep down I was going to be a mother someday, but I didn't know how. But I had to trust that process. And for me, I just didn't feel, for myself, IVF is great for people, but for me, I just did not feel that was a route that I was 100% on. And even talking with my spouse, like, it was very much like, all right, this door's closing. Um, I really just don't feel a peace for me pursuing IVF. But what's next? Like, how do we go about with this next process? But with that naturopathic medicine, it was also just helping me to prepare my body for whatever the next step was going to be, to emotionally, physically, just feeling better, getting through that suffering part, getting through the anxiety, getting through that fear, trusting my body of whatever was coming next was what I feel that Western medicine part doesn't hit a lot. I'm not to say everyone's like that, but where it's not talked about as much. And like you said from the beginning.
Yeah, and really being able to tune into your own intuition. So often people get led down a path that, the experts may be telling them is the next best step for
Mhm.
them. But at the end of the day, like, you are actually the expert in your own body and what feels right for you. So being able to tune into your intuition on
Mhm.
what is the best next step is vital, because there are going to be so many instances when you might look back and have those regrets or wonder, should you have done something differently?
Mhm.
And when that decision comes from you and that internal intuitive guidance, I find that for me personally, there's much less of that regret. There might be
Mhm.
okay, well, that didn't work out. What's next? Like, I did the best I could with the information I had,
Mhm.
but there's much less of like I wish I hadn't listened to that person.
Mhm.
And I wish I'd trusted myself. I wish I'd made that decision for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what allowed you to tune into your intuition and ultimately make a decision that felt guided and uh,
Yeah.
led you to your sweet boy?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was great to have a supportive husband, but it was also annoying at times because I'm like, just tell me what to do. Like, do we do IVF or not? Like, just say it. And he's like, this is your body. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your body. Like, I love you. I'm here for you. We could talk about it. But I think as the years passed and working with you, working on myself, I just had to surrender to say, I think enough is enough. As far as, we've done everything we can. We prepared my body. I've done a lot of internal work. I've done so, yeah, I just really, because I mean, friends ask me these, like good friends, and I don't mind talking about it. They'll ask me these days, like, do you regret not doing IVF? And I say, no, because I had a piece about it. Like, of course, there's times you're like, I wonder if it would have happened, but there's not, I don't regret it because for me, I had a piece going in saying, that's not for me. It's not what I want to choose. And I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with that. So I don't have a regret of, oh man, I should have tried IVF. I just really was like, no, I don't, but I think we think, not regrets mainly, but sometimes you think like, oh, I wonder if I went to this college, what it would have been like, or I wonder if I chose this path I mean, so there's always that little curiosity. I wonder if I had a next kid, what that would look like, or, but there was never any remorse or regret or like, oh man, I should have tried that. Cause you just have to really, by working with you, tuning into yourself, your body, your instincts. For me, a lot of prayer and working through all that. It was just like, okay, I'm working on myself, but I think I need to look at the next step. And that's where one of our dear friends, her and her husband were like, hey, we're looking at doing foster care. Do you guys want to join the class with us and just kind of check it out? I'm like, yeah, sure. This is a friend, one of my best friends, and she can influence me very easily. So she's like, do you want to check it out? So I come home, I'm like, Billy, I signed us up for foster care classes. And he's like, what? Like, okay, sure. I'm like, we'll just take the classes just to see, like, get information. We don't have to, just because you take the classes, you don't have to keep pursuing it if you don't want. So I went in with that mindset. And he was like, okay, he went along with it. Was like, yep, let's try it. Let's see what it's all about. So that door opened up, and yeah, it was a big sorry, it was a beautiful thing, even though there's so much hurt in foster care, and these poor kids didn't ask to be in the system and didn't ask to have hurt done to them. It it was kind of, you go in and it kind of even shakes you up emotionally. Just so I had to do a lot of tapping to be like, okay, like you learn about the foster care system and just the brokenness. But yet I also think it was a beautiful thing because with infertility, there is a lot of brokenness in whatever kid came my way. I knew I could share with them the brokenness, but how beautiful you can come out of this, this suffering part is, I can kind of relate. Yeah, there's a different level. Obviously, I didn't get abused, but there's different levels of pain and suffering and trauma. And, infertility was one, but I really felt like going through these classes, they give you the reality of it. So yes, it is scary. And yes, it is sad, but you're also like, my husband said, we have so much love, even for our animals. How much more love can we give to whatever kid comes into our house? And we have these extra bedrooms. Why not fill it with a kid that needs to feel loved, needs to feel wanted, and wants and protected? Um, so that's a huge process to step into itself, because you're here.
Absolutely.
Kids might be here forever. These kids might not, and so you're opening yourself up to more vulnerability. Because, you kind of question, like, well, what if this kid comes in and you get close to them and there's reunification or they go back to family? But to know that I gave let this kid know they were loved, they were safe, they were wanted. We just was praying that it would make that impact, whether they were here for a week, or forever, and it was funny because through foster care, they were like, well, if you get an infant, most likely they won't, stay in your house because some family will pop up and, they'll stay maybe a week or two. So we're like, okay, the part of foster care, you can say your ages, which is the nice part. So we said, we'll do 0 to 2. You can even specify if you want male or female. We were open. Our agency was just great to work with. You can also even just do respite care where, okay, if you go into foster care, but you don't want to take in kids, but you can provide respite for families that have the kids that are fostering the kids, which I think is great. And it's not stressed enough in foster care because you just think, oh, if I get into foster care, I have to have a kid in my house 24/7. But no, you can also do some foster care respite where you're basically babysit and the state pays you to babysit. But we chose to dive in. So sorry, you want me to keep going? You want questions? I feel like.
Oh, no. I mean, I think it's a really important thing to talk about because there is a lot of fear that comes up for people about, well, what would that actually look like to pursue foster care, foster to adopt, a lot of unknowns. Um, some people might not want to pursue that because it doesn't feel aligned for them. But for some, if it's more of the fear of the unknowns, having a realistic conversation about well, what can that look like, and hearing your full story, like me knowing your full story and knowing where it's going. I know that it can often turn out that couples will have children for a short period of time and then they're reunified with family, and that can feel heartbreaking. So having the emotional preparation, having nervous system regulation, and essentially detaching from any particular outcome, but being able to say, I am here to share whatever love I have and help this child feel loved and safe. That is so beautiful and so powerful to have, released an outcome, released this like, oh, I have to have a baby, the part of the ego that really wants to control everything. The fact that you had spent time really healing so much so that you could take this next step into what could be a tumultuous journey for some families. What did it ultimately end up looking like for you guys?
Getting our son or
Yeah.
Yeah, so once you're done with the classes, you get certified, you get put on a list, an open bed list. So once a kid pops up that kind of meets the criteria, your agency looks and says, oh, okay, we have a baby. They'll give you a call. So I work at a hospital. We were waiting for a call. And I mean, yeah, there's nerves, you're not sure, you have a phone near you, like, oh, when are they going to call me? got a call from our agency, and they said first we did get a call from a kid that before my son, a kid that didn't end up working out. It was a kid they needed a house for, but kid was in Phoenix. I said, well, we're open to take them, but they ended up finding a foster family in Phoenix. So then that was great. I'm like, okay, wasn't meant to be. Then we got this call for my son. I was at work. They said, hey, we have an infant. He was born at your hospital. There was no dad. Dad was John Doe. Mother came in, had the baby, left. And there was substance abuse, yes, for her, and but baby, so far, he's in the NICU, he's healthy, he's feeding well. Do you want him? He was about a week old at that time because he needed to stay in the NICU. He was a little underweight. So they were just feeding him, monitoring him. So I called my husband and was like, hey, they got an infant for us. It's a boy, should we do it? And he was like, well, we got to start somewhere. I'm like, okay. So I call our agency back, was like, yeah, we'll take the baby, So all right, the DCS, the Department of Child Safety, they'll call you. They'll probably be there in about an hour. So I get off the phone. My son was born at the hospital I work at, but he was discharged to what they take the kids to, like they call it the welcome center until they find a place for them. So he was there for a couple hours, but they called us and said, all right, we're on our way. So they pull up and knock on the door, and here this gal comes. It's kind of just surreal, and like we joke, and like it was kind of like an Uber dropping off a baby, because it was all right, well, here's this infant. And we're like, I mean, we had stuff prepared, basic stuff, a crib, a changing table, but they drop us off. They had a couple days of formula for us, and here's your kid, and the DCS, the social worker, will be, getting in touch with you tomorrow. I'm like, oh, okay. So basically, but I look back and my husband, Billy, we kind of joke, because it's like years ago at the beginning when we were going through infertility, he was like, talked about adoption a little bit here and there, foster care, but he was like, I just want someone to drop a kid off at our door that like needs a house. And so years we look back, I'm like, well, here you go. Here is this baby dropped off at our door. Like, he needed a house and needed love. So yeah, that was, I look back and it's pretty crazy, but our parents on both sides, my in-laws and my parents, were great support. Our siblings, I mean, friends, everyone came in because they knew we were starting foster care. So they were sending us things, dropping off. I mean, we had a ton of stuff. I mean, it was just great to see that community of our friends and family just show that love of like, hey, what can we get you? They're dropping off meals, they're dropping off clothes, they're dropping off baby swings, they're dropping off, I mean, just tons of stuff that I was like, wow, going through that journey, I could say the biggest thing, the love of our community and our people, was just tremendous and overwhelming. And seeing, like, here was our boy, and not knowing though, because there was still court dates, court system that you were attending, and you didn't know if mom was going to show up. But you had to trust the process and surrender, and trying to focus today. Okay, today is what I'm here today. My son is here with me today. Focus on today, kind of thing, instead of chewing at oh, what can happen? Well, what if she shows up, or what, trying to tap into that process of just really trusting the whole process in yourself, and yeah, loving on the little kid.
Yeah, staying present. Like you said, just being like,
Mhm,
he's with us today. How can I love
mhm,
him today? How can I trust myself today? And there's so many things in life where like that's really all we can do.
yep.
Because
Mhm,
if we feed into that fear of like, well, what if this happens? If what if this happens? And what if that happens? Then you're not really able to enjoy that present moment either.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so having those tools, I mean, tapping is one that I use personally, also frequently to stay present when I'm anxious about something that may or may not happen. Ultimately, like the future has endless possibilities and we have no idea what's going to happen, but it's some of that uncertainty that can make it challenging to be in the
mhm.
moment.
Yeah, and I think just really like there's so much fear in our world too, and just really trying to, and no one likes to suffer, right? I mean, no one, so it's like some of it was a little bit of torture to be like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, just really tuning in into, all right, here's today. This is what I have in front of me for today, and not trying to think, I mean, of course it comes up to think about the next court date, or you were a little, but we had our friends, we had our support group. And it's, and at times you were kind of like, can I connect with this baby? Like, can I connect with this kid? Like, I don't, what if they take them away? But I feel like as adults, we have these tools to, if we work on these tools, and we have these tools to help get us through that process, because as an adult, I want to know how everyone's going to go through pain and suffering regardless of what it is, but I want to know how I can deal with it better and come out as a better human being and not as this bitter person who hates the world and hates everyone in it. um so yeah, even connecting with the kid, with my son, it was just like you kind of tread lightly a little bit, and you're like, but focusing on today was huge. Like he's here today. I'm thankful for today. So what can I do to show that he's loved and wanted and he's safe? Mhm. Mhm. Yes. And I think it's even pretty more beautiful. I mean, it's great to have your own kid, but I find it's beautiful to have this relationship that is you're earning, right? Like it's not just given to you, where, because I told my husband, I'm like, before we got, well, maybe it was when we had our son, it was just like, you take some continuing education classes with foster care, and some of them, they were like, you may not have that bond with your kid, and because they go visit their biological mom or biological dad, or and it kind of got me down a little bit. I'm like, gosh, I'm not gonna have that bond with my kid, like with this kid that's in my house. But my husband was like, Adri, it's even more beautiful to see that this is a relationship with a kid that you are earning. It's not just this given to you, like, all right, I had my kid at the hospital and I bring my kid home, but that's beautiful, yes. But knowing that this relationship is kind of like a two-way thing, and you're trusting, they're trusting you, they're trusting, um, that bond was just beautiful, seeing that it's work and it's not just something that's came easily, and yeah, knowing that he could trust that, yeah, he's getting his needs met, he's safe, he's loved. Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's beautiful on so many levels, but it also brings some awareness to how we might take for granted the like you birth a child, you bring them home, there's just this bond, when
Mhm.
really it should be a two-way street, right? Like,
Yeah.
just assuming that, like, well, this is my baby, it was birthed from me, and therefore they should trust me implicitly. uh, Maybe some parents are coming in with that model of operation, when really there should be intention and consciousness of, like, this is a human being,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
have needs. And what I've witnessed time and time again, and it's just the couples who have worked through so much of their own healing prior to however their children come to them. um,
Mhm.
there's so much more appreciation for that, so much more consciousness around how they show up to parent as
Mhm.
well. So I
Mhm.
see a lot of preparation in the infertility journey for what parenthood might look like as well.
Mhm. And I think it
And
even just made my marriage stronger, you know, where I mean, my husband, like I said, he was very in touch with his emotions. And so when I was going to counseling, he would join me on some of the sessions. He's like, yeah, I'll go. When do you want me to go? Let's go. So every other month, he would join me in the session with our counselor. And um, during that waiting period, I think was what I tell some friends that are people that I've met that are going through infertility. It's going through that waiting period, like, yeah, even if it sucks, but it's good. It's there's a good thing to it. You can make your relationship stronger with your partner. Like you can work on that. You can work on building that trust and yeah, that parenthood of what it would look like. And um yeah, like it's oh it's hard to sit with that at times because you're when you're in it, but when you look back, I'm like, oh, this was good. Like this made my marriage stronger. It made us stronger. So then when a kid did come in, when our son did come in, like there was times where it was like, wow, this was beautiful because we were very patient with each other. We were, I mean, yeah, we all had off days where it was like, all right, you would
we're
get annoyed
human.
with each other, right? We're human. But it was beautiful because it was just so reminding like we're a team, you know, and we help each other out. It was even being older parents because it was like 30, 39, 40 when our son came to us. Was like, you know, it was having that time was good. Where, yeah, back then, if you told me that, I'd have been like, oh, yeah, whatever. Like, you know, but like looking back now, it's like having that time just made us a better marriage, better parents to know how to parent and to tag team and better communicator. Yeah, for sure. For
Oh,
sure.
that's a really important highlight. Thank you for sharing that piece of it. I don't know that you and I have really talked about that part of it before.
Yeah,
um, I
for sure.
recall when you first showed me a picture of your son, and
Mhm.
prior to his official adoption, and
Mhm.
you saying, I can't imagine him loving more. I can't imagine loving him more if he had come from my own body.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was, I mean, I think we both were just having a moment of just, the
Yeah.
love and the relief of, like, he's
Yeah.
here. Um, but still
Mhm.
maybe having that uncertainty of, like, how long will he be with us for?
Mhm.
Outside of
Mhm.
just being able to take that day by day, was there anything that was necessary for you that allowed you to have this unconditional love for him?
Um, it was, you know, it was friends that were like, because I would share like, oh, I don't know, like if he's gone, like this will be a heartbreak for us, you know, if they take him away, like this will be huge, like it will be a big heartbreak. But I knew that I having lots of prayers and just trusting that this was going to work out. Because I know with foster like this, our case is rare, right? Because mother never showed up to any of the court dates. but you just didn't know. There was still just a lot of unknown, and you still had to go through the process. Yeah, that friend support, that prayer, just really taking things day by day. I mean, it just was very much like I this kid needs love. I think that was kind of the bottom, ultimate factor of like, this kid needs love. Like, it would be selfish of me to not love him if in the back of my mind I'm like, oh, he might go away. I'm not gonna love him. I'm gonna set up my barriers. I'm not, that's not, I think as just humans, that's just not our, it's hard to do that. And it's not good to at times, it's not healthy. It's not serving anything. So yeah, it just was all right. Trusting like it's gonna work out, and I love this kid, and yeah, if he gets taken away, like, this is gonna really suck, but at least I loved him, and I know how to deal with trauma, right? And suffering. I mean, even if you birth your own kid, you're not guaranteed. Your kid isn't guaranteed to be, not to be on the dark side, but like, your kid's not, every day is a gift, so your
Yeah,
kid's not
you just don't
guaranteed
know.
to be there. Yeah, like, you met, our cousin, their kid passed away of cancer. I met people in the hospital, like, never smoked and got lung cancer. Or, so you just don't know. So there are things we can control, but then there's stuff we can't. And yes, foster care, adoption, you can't control. So you're just really having to hone in on that process and love and support, and knowing like, this kid, he's in my house, and we we will love him. And I mean, even I think I kind of, my parents too, like, and my husband's parent, my in-laws, my everyone was just coming down and like loving on this baby. And I'm like, oh man, if this baby gets taken away, like, it's not just us being affected, but our whole family, our whole friends, our people. But how beautiful. And I would hope that kid would know, like, down the road, if he left, like, I was loved. um it's, like I said, it's such a sad story in foster care, but it's so beautiful because we can come in and show them, this is safe, you're safe here, you're loved, and you're wanted, and you hope that changes the trajectory of
Absolutely.
care.
There's, when there's that term, there's a book that really covers this while the body keeps a score, about
Mhm.
how our body remembers trauma, and our body remembers being loved and feeling
Mhm.
safe. And even like with the episode I did on acupuncture, it's like your body remembers what it feels like and what energy we're accessing during acupuncture. Like, there's those moments that are really key. And I do believe that our love and our compassion is really, really powerful.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'm so proud of you guys.
Mhm.
and
Thanks.
and
Mhm.
how far you've come in your healing, and being able to be with your emotions and process your emotions and step forward into this role that is difficult. And parenting is difficult no matter how it comes about in so many ways.
Mhm.
And being able to see that every day is a gift. All you
Mhm.
can do is take it day by day. We can try to project the future and all of our worries onto it, but at the end of the day, if we're using tools that help us stay present, then we're actually more likely to live into a future that is a more desirable one too.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. So altogether, it took about 6 months where rights were severed. Mother never showed up. And um, a year for the official adoption. And that day, it was beautiful. Just seeing all the friends, family in present and via Zoom. And the judge was great. It was a no mascara day because it was like, I know I'm just going to be crying the whole time. We got to officially name him. And it was just, it was beautiful. So it was something where even to this day, he's 2 now. And I look and I think, gosh, we were chosen to be your parents. And this was meant to be going through this journey, going through all this pain, suffering. Yeah, like you said, thank you. I mean, just that emotional part, that physical part, like this was all meant to be for you to come to us. We were chosen to be with you. And we were chosen to be your parents. And I think that's great. You know, it's beautiful. You know, I'll share this. I asked my husband on the first Mother's Day, I said, can I share this with Dr. Rose and people, just because I really feel like this kind of helps. This was the first Mother's Day card he sent me, you know, or wrote to me, but so I'll share it with you. He said, yes, I could share it. But he said, Mama, Adri, we just wanted to say how much we love you and appreciate you. You worked so hard to become a mother, and your pain and suffering only made you stronger. We are in awe of the mother you are. From morning till night, your compassion, kindness, and love is so evident. It is a gift to see in person and be with you as we experience parenthood together. Everett was the luckiest boy when he was first laid into your arms. I know he instantly knew he was with the mother that will love him forever. Enjoy your first Mother's Day. You earned it. So just, you know, seeing of no matter how you become a mother, this is great and it's beautiful. And, you know, I hope for people out there, like, you know, that may be thinking, I mean, if you're like, hey, if you're open to something, just go for it. Listen to your instincts. Because, you know, if I wasn't open to foster care or open to adoption, or, I mean, who knows where I would be, but the timing and the fact and how my son came to me, it's just beautiful, and how it's just made individually and as a couple. Yeah, just great stuff.
Thank you so much for sharing all that card. Is so sweet.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
special.
I know. Yes, it was. I was like, I'm keeping this forever. And I was like, even now I get choked up because it was just great. And I hope you could see too, like people could see like this is with like working on the marriage, like, and seeing like, oh wow, like this is something that makes it even more beautiful, because we did work hard, you know, we both did, but he realizes, you know, like just that support and that love for each other as a couple, but then also just for our son. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. And
thank you.
I know there may be people out there who feel like this gives them a little more openness to exploring other options. You know, of course, it could be so frustrating to be in the middle of infertility and have someone say, why don't you just adopt, as if that's like an easy thing to do. And so I love sharing examples of people who did make that very conscious decision to choose a path that might have been different, that it wasn't that your body failed you, it was that, oh, this is what was always meant to be. And being able to allow yourself to really experience that love without the barriers, right? That so many of us put up when we're afraid of getting hurt. And even if it's not serving us, it's that like instinctual, like, I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to get hurt again. So I'm just going to put this wall up. But that you were able to, you know, bring the walls down and have that unconditional love and connection and support this baby no matter what was going to happen is just such a powerful example of how beautiful it can be to be human. Even when we don't know what the outcome's going to be. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Billy, for letting her share the card with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for, sharing Everett with me over the last couple of years. It's just been a joy to see pictures and watch him growing up, and the pictures that you had shared from his adoption. I mean, I was on the other end just too.
Yeah,
because every child does deserve that unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't know what someone's been through before, how some of that trauma for them may play out later, and how you can continue to support them unconditionally. It's just life, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if anyone has questions, they can reach out to you, and I'm open to talk, and they can reach out to me, me through you, or,
Appreciate that. Yeah. If you think of any particular resources that really supported you through the foster process, we can also link those in the show notes too for people. Yeah. Oh, thank you again,
thank you,
Adri, for sharing, and Billy somewhere out there for sharing as well, and Everett, because this is partly his story too.
Yes, for sure.
And I'm just extending all my love to you guys as you continue this wild parenting journey.
Right. Yes. Thank you very much.